with TSN Hockey Insider, Darren Dreger, one half of the Dregs Hockey Podcast, and this will be our last hit of the summer with Dregs. Less massive Canucks news breaks. Thank you for the time, sir. I hope you're well. Happy Canada Day.
Yeah, same to you guys. No, I'm doing well. We're making our annual pilgrimage to Manitoba to visit the cabbage for the summer, so just nicely on the road. We've got Tiny the Great Dane sedated, sleeping nicely in the back seat, and as long as my GPS doesn't scream at us in the next 5-10 minutes, we should be good.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's have at her, Dregs. First and foremost, overall, what did you make of what the Vancouver Canucks did in free agency?
It was interesting. I think that's the best way to put it. I think in many ways, the Vancouver Canucks are symbolic of the struggles that a lot of teams faced in free agency and leading up to the draft in some of the trade conversations that Patrik Allvin would have participated in. Look, the salary cap isn't new to any club, but when you're a team like Vancouver and you've got to bite down hard in the way that they did and buying out Oliver Ekman-Larsson and then still looking for additional cap relief and looking for a center and looking for defense and a winger and all of those things, to get all of that work done via trade or free agency was way more difficult. And it has been more difficult to this point. We're still in early July than I think any of us were predicting. I mean, going into draft week, I think most of us expected that there was going to be just a whack of activity. And there was some leading up to the draft, but as we know on Wednesday, round one, there was nothing, zero going on. And even in free agency, when you look at some of these super short deals, the money that these players have had to leave on the table, it's been a kind of a changing of scenery, I would say, from a player agent and a player perspective than it is from a club standpoint. So I think the jury is still out on Vancouver and what they didn't do.
I was amazed at like some veterans, and I guess there's different circumstances here, but guys like Luke Schenn got 3-year deals.
Yeah.
But there was an awful lot of guys, and the Canucks got a couple of them, like Ian Cole and Blugers on 1-year deals. And I think in another market, those are guys getting multi-year deals, not long-term deals, but I think they're getting 2 to 3-year deals, guys like that.
Agreed. I mean, Cole is a good player. Teddy Bluger, let's see how that plays out. I'd like to see more of him, but we know that he's game. We know that he's eager. I mean, the benefit of the 1-year deal is pretty obvious. It's more team friendly than anything. You know, there's virtually no risk in that, and it keeps that player motivated, keeps that player hungry. But, you know, the upheaval of a 1-year deal isn't for everyone. I've had this conversation with Ray Ferraro a number of times on the podcast over the years, and he was a player who needed the security. He needed to feel like, you know, the club was committed to him. He didn't have to worry about his family and all of that. And I wonder how that impacts players in today's game and how that influences the type of game that they're able to play. Yeah, it's great to be motivated. You know, I would hope that most players are motivated regardless of their contract. These 1-year deals can also bite you in the end.
Yeah, they can be unsettling.
You know what we saw this weekend, gents? We saw the return of the middle class to the NHL.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Which a lot of people wondered, would you just pay your stars and then try and get away as cheaply as possible to round out and fill out the bottom of your roster given another year of low cap increase? We saw the middle class come back to the NHL.
Yeah, no doubt about that. We did. And, you know, there's a combination of how that works too, right? Like, you know, Max Domi, as an example, who signs the 1-year deal with the Maple Leafs, you know, he was hoping that there was going to be room for him in Dallas. And then all of a sudden, Matt Duchene gets bought out by the Nashville Predators. And Dallas is sitting there looking, oh, boy, we've got more upside in Matt Duchene as a free agent than we do in Max Domi. So we're going to commit that $3 million right there to Duchene. And now a market to stay in Dallas disappears for Max Domi. And he ends up, you know, having to take it between the eyes in the 1-year deal with the Maple Leafs. So it's been a bizarre lead up through free agency and into this first week.
Granted, it was probably their third or fourth priority, Dregs, but the Canucks didn't really get that big winger they'd been eyeing. Is there any big wingers left? Have you heard them connected to any hefty wingers?
I have not. No, I haven't. But again, that's not to say that there aren't pieces that are still out there. And I wonder, let's see how the trade wheel turns here in the days and the weeks ahead too, right? Because maybe there's teams that maybe got more than they were hoping for. I still look at the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't know how they're going to figure all of this out. I mean, even though they've got 1-year deals on Bertuzzi and Max Domi, they have some hefty contracts they're going to sign that don't apply to this upcoming season. But still, all of a sudden you have an abundance. And it seemed like the New York Rangers and the Boston Bruins were signing players left, right, and center. So there are going to be teams that are going to have to comply via cap. So if there isn't a winger available on the open market that appeals to Rick Tocchet and Patrik Allvin, then maybe they can still do that via trade.
Well, you mentioned the trade market being quiet, and the Canucks may just be a symptom of that, and maybe that's possibly Patrik Allvin and the way he likes to do his business as well. But Dregs, I mean, it sounded like they weren't involved at all on roster players over the course of the draft on the weekend. Did you hear Vancouver in deep discussions on any kind of trade involving a roster player?
Yeah, I don't know who would have had to have come back from the Canucks, but I know that the Philadelphia Flyers were pushing hard to convince Allvin and company they should take Travis Sanheim. And that was after striking out with the Winnipeg Jets. And I know Philadelphia was willing to take Nate Schmidt, tough contract for the Winnipeg Jets. Winnipeg pushed away from that. So I suspect that Vancouver would have, if they had indulged, they would have moved out one of their forwards, one of their wingers as well. But that was the only thing really that seemed to be somewhat tangible, I think, from the Canucks standpoint.
But there's some big trades that still have to happen, right? Like Erik Karlsson's still got to get traded. There's
Calgary.
Yeah, there's still some trades that, I mean, I suppose, hey, business never closes. Can you do stuff in August? Yes, it rarely happens though. So would you suspect that these are July transactions still, or do they almost have to wait till September?
Yeah, well, if you want to throw Calgary into that mix, guys, I don't think that the Calgary Flames feel any pressure at all to move their players. I mean, they've got good players that are in play. We know this, but there's no sense of urgency to move Noah Hannafin or Michael Backlund and Lindholm. Maybe they get a deal done there. Erik Karlsson, that's a complicated transaction. I still think that the Carolina Hurricanes are more likely than not to find a way to make that work. And you wonder, does that come at Shea's expense? Is it Brett Pesce who gets moved? And then Alex DeBrincat and the Ottawa Senators. That one is a little perplexing, mostly because of how good a player he is, DeBrincat that is, but then from a financial element to it as well. I've been told that he wants Timo Meier money, which is $8.8 million annually. But he deserves that level of money. When you look head-to-head, Timo Meier versus Alex DeBrincat's his numbers are right there with Timo Meier. Sounds like he wants out of Canada, or for family reasons wants out of Canada. So that really puts Pierre Dorion and the Ottawa Senators in the juice there, even though, as has been reported by Bruce Garriock and others, teams have permission. So you're right. I mean, there's some pretty juicy pieces that still could get moved here in the not too distant future.
Lastly, Dregs, on Tanner Pearson, they declared him all ready to go for training camp. Is that jive with what you've heard about that troublesome hand?
Well, it's wishful thinking. And, I think the comment made by Patrik Allvin was being extremely hopeful. And everybody's hopeful. Tanner wants to resume his career, but it is way, way too early to submit that he is going to be 100% healthy for training camp. He's skating in Ontario. I don't know how much pressure he's putting on that hand if he's shooting pucks yet. I mean, he wasn't very, very recently. So I don't think he's going to know, or his medical team is going to know, until he actually gets into the high octane training. And maybe there's some physical contact. I mean, look at it. How is he going to push off if that hand isn't working? So there are some concerns. that aren't going to be alleviated until he actually gets into that level of experience in training and in playing games. Guys, let's not forget, he's had 6 or 7 procedures to correct all of the issues associated with that hand. So, again, I'll repeat myself. He's hopeful. The Canucks are hopeful. But from a medical perspective, there's certainly no guarantee he's going to be ready.
Marvelous stuff, my friend, today and all year. Thank you for this. Drive safely. Look forward to chatting with you in September, and enjoy the cabbage, as you call it.
Best of luck with the mosquitoes. Yes.
All right, fellas. Thank you. Have a great summer.
This Sekeres and Price clip brought to you by Northlands Golf Course. 6 to 90-day advance bookings relaunching on March 1st. Limited availability and conditions apply. Visit golfnorthlands.com for more details.